Hello guys, welcome back. In this video, let us understood one more real-time scenario and let us understood one more important concept. Let's say I am using Lambda function. Let's say I have a company and I am using Lambda function in order to process my data. And I am accessing my ML model. So for my internal company purpose, I'm using one of the ML model from Bedrock. So currently this Lambda function is in public VPC or default VPC. So now what happens? Obviously, the requests which are sending from this Lambda function to this Bedrock will move through the public internet only. So the network is public. That is, the communication happens between our ML model and Lambda is public. So that's why the connectivity is not secure, right? So since by using the public internet only we are accessing our model, so that's why we can able to say that connectivity is not secure. Now let's have a question in our mind, that is I want to provide, that is my company requirement is I want to provide a private connectivity to my Bedrock ML model from my Lambda function. So the question here is how to provide that private connectivity to my Lambda function to access this Bedrock model. And one more point is I want to put this Lambda function privately. That is, I want to only access this. So not any public access is there for this Lambda function. I don't want to provide any public access to this Lambda function. Privately, I want to access this, and through this Lambda function, through any private network, I want to access Bedrock model. So like that, I want the configuration. Now, is there any way? Is there any way to access this Bedrock model privately? Yes. The answer for that is yes. We can able to access this Bedrock model privately from our compute service, that is Lambda. So how, sir, how can able to do that? So before accessing Bedrock, let's secure this Lambda function. Let's secure this Lambda function. How to secure this Lambda function, sir? You can secure this Lambda function by putting this Lambda function into a private subnet of your VPC. So what you can able to do to secure this Lambda function, you can able to put this Lambda function under private subnet of your VPC. Okay, let's say I put this Lambda function under my private subnet. So when I put this Lambda function under private subnet, can you tell me this Lambda function have access to internet? No, right? Obviously, private subnets do not have any access to internet. So that's why this Lambda function do not have access to internet. So this Lambda function through internet cannot able to connect to this Bedrock. Okay. Now, let's say I provided this Lambda function in private subnet, and now the Lambda function is secure. Now this Lambda function is secure, and through internet I cannot able to connect to this Bedrock ML models. So what is my requirement? I want to connect to my Bedrock models, right? Securely by using private network. Yes. So how to create that? So for that you have an option under VPC, that is VPC endpoint. So what is that? VPC interface endpoint. You can able to create one VPC interface endpoint in order to connect to your Bedrock model. So through that VPC endpoint, you can able to connect to your Bedrock model from your private subnet itself. Now let's understood hands-on of how to create or how to create this VPC endpoint and how to secure our Lambda function and how to access the Bedrock model. So for that, first I want to access one Bedrock related ML model. Now you can see I have logged into my AWS management console. So first I want to provide access to my Bedrock model. So that's why I'm opening the Bedrock service, that is this. It's already available here, or you can search from here. I'm just opening this Bedrock service. So first I want to provide access to that any one of the model in Bedrock. So that's why I'm clicking on get started. And here I'm clicking on model access under Bedrock configurations. I want to enable specific model. So that's why I'm selecting this and selecting any one of the models. So currently I'm selecting this Titan Text G1 Premier model. Now I'm clicking on next and just submitting this request in order to access that particular model. Now you can see, if you observe, that model access is granted right now. So let's copy the model ID. So where the model ID is present under foundational models, base model. I'm just scrolling it up. Yeah, you can see this is the Titan Text G1 Premier model. That model ID I've copied. So okay, now we can able to access this model using this model ID. So for that, in order to check that can we able to access this model by using this model ID or not, I want to use a Lambda function currently for this demo. Now you can observe, so currently I opened some Bedrock, that is a Lambda function, that is invoke Bedrock is the Lambda function name. So here I want to write some code in order to access my Bedrock model that I have just accessed. You can see that just enabled, or so what are the model that I am accessed by using this model access, that I want to access by using this model ID. For that I want to write some code in this Lambda function. So in order to access, so first we need to define a Lambda handler. You can see the handler, that is this. I'm just copying the Lambda handler. So whenever we run this Lambda function, that Lambda handler will first run based on the event that will be happened, and based on that context it will do or perform some tasks. So first what I'm expecting is I want to create a Bedrock runtime variable. I want to connect to my Bedrock as a client. So if you want to connect to Bedrock as a client, you must need to import this Boto3 library. I imported that Boto3. Now I'm connecting to my Bedrock as a client by using this Boto3. So Boto3 dot client of, so what you want to connect? Bedrock, right? Yeah. So Bedrock runtime. So I provided that. So you also need to provide one more thing, that is a region. From which region you want to access your model. My region is US East -1, that is a North Virginia region related code. You can see that is this. Okay. Now I want to save this configuration, or I want to save this client connection in one of the variable, that is a Bedrock runtime. So let's provide the variable name like this, so that we can able to identify the variable easily. Now I want to invoke my model. I want to invoke the model that I have just previously created. So for that, by using this Bedrock runtime variable, I am writing the invoke model. I'm using this invoke model function in order to invoke my model. And I'm providing my model ID. So which model I want to invoke? That model related ID I'm providing here. That's I've copied previously, or else you can copy just now as well. Yeah, this is the model ID. This is the model that I'm accessing. I'm just pasting the model ID here. Then I want to provide some prompt, right? I want to provide the body for this. So for this model, what question do you want to provide? That you need to specify under the body. And your body need to be in JSON format. So in order to convert my body into JSON format, I want to import JSON at first. Then here I'm writing JSON dot dumps in order to convert a dictionary format of data into this JSON. Now I'm providing some dictionary, or you can say key value pair here. And in this you need to provide input text. This is the must required column. So for this, whatever the question that you provide, that is the question that will be asked or sent to this model, and this model will send you the response back to this invoke model function, and we need to store that result here, and we can even able to do or perform anything. We can able to print or we can able to return whatever the response that we are getting. So that's what we can able to do. So let's provide some question like what is AI. So like that, let's provide some question. And after getting the result, you need to pick the body of your result and get only, you need to pick the body of your result, and then, so currently that result is in the format of binary. So in order to read that, you need to write this read function. Okay. Now I want to test this. So first I want to save these changes. What the code I have written, that code I want to save. So that's why I'm clicking on deploy. After the code changes got saved or deployed, now we can test. So first I'm just clicking on test, and here I'm providing the event name, some random event name, and saving this event to use it multiple times whenever I'm testing, and just clicking on test. Now let's see, we can able to, sorry, I cannot process with the request. So now we can able to get the response, right? Yes, we can able to get the response. So let's provide, let's ask the same question and again and again. I think we are getting the same response. So what is AI means? Let's change a bit and deploy the thing. Now we are getting the response. We can able to access this model. We are getting some response. For this question, it is providing me some response. Now let's test it again. Sometimes it might happen. So don't need to worry about it. Just wait for few seconds so that your model will responding, or you can say your model response will start at that moment of time after. So now we again deployed, we're again getting the same response, I think. Now let's change the question and ask again. Now let's say the changes. What is the question? What is AI means? So after it gets deployed, let's ask the question or test this Lambda function whether it can able to ask this question to this model and get the response or not. So I think currently it's not providing me the response. Yeah, now we got the response. AI is short for artificial intelligence, and it's a field of computer science that focus on creating intelligent machines that performs. Yeah, you can see some more detail is there. Yeah. So now we can able to access our model and we got the response as well. If we now let's ask us a question. So what the question is, now how we are accessing our model? Now we are accessing this model from this Lambda function. Now the question is how we are accessing our model, either by using public internet or by using a private connectivity. So in order to identify that we are we are accessing this model by using public internet or private connectivity, first you need to open your configurations tab. So there you can able to see VPC. Just select it. So currently, do there any VPCs connected configured? No. So from this we can able to say that there is no VPCs configured. So our Lambda function currently present in public subnet. We can say that our Lambda function is configured under default VPC in a public subnet. Now let's say I want to secure this Lambda function. I want to secure this Lambda function and put it in a private subnet. For that, I'm just clicking on configurations and just editing this and just providing the VPC here. So this is the lab VPC that I have configured for this. I selected that and I want to put this in a private subnet 1. So that's why you can see I'm putting this in a private subnet 1. So that's why I'm selecting this. You can see private subnet 1. I'm selected that. Inside private subnet, now we are putting our VPC. Previously, our VPC in a public subnet, present in a public subnet. Now we are putting this Lambda function in a private subnet and we are providing some security group as well. I'm just saving this. So that security group related inbound is visible. You can even see the outbound as well, right? Yeah. So previously, before this Lambda function is present in public subnet. So that's why we can able to access our ML model or Bedrock based ML model, that is this ML model, through internet. Now we updated the configuration of this Lambda function and we configured this under private VPC, right? Yeah, private VPC under lab VPC under private subnet we configured this. Under private subnet we configured this. Obviously, private subnet means there is no route to internet, right? Yeah, there is no route to internet. So obviously, this Lambda function cannot able to communicate with internet. Through internet, it cannot able to access anything. That means through internet, this Lambda function cannot able to access our Bedrock based ML model. So let's check after this updating got finished whether we can able to access our ML model or not. Now this configuration changes, updating may take you few seconds as well. So just wait for few seconds, 2 minutes. So just wait till this updating got succeeded, then we can test this. And check whether this Lambda function present in private subnet of my VPC can able to access this Bedrock based model or not by using this Bedrock runtime connectivity as a client. Now you can able to observe successfully updated the function invoke Bedrock. Now I want to test this. So let's provide some different question. What is SageMaker, or you can say what is Amazon SageMaker? So let's provide the question like this and save the changes and let's retest it. So whenever it gets updated, let's say, yeah, I'm just retesting it. Now we can see do we got response or not. As per the knowledge that we have, since this Lambda function present in private subnet of my VPC, we are not having access to internet. We cannot able to access this model. Since we do not have any private connectivity as well previously provided, so we cannot able to access this model. Now let's see the result and let's validate it whether we can able to connect or not. Okay, now you can able to observe. So error message we are getting. What is the response that we are getting? Task time out after these many seconds. After these many seconds, your task is getting timed out. That means you haven't get the response. That is, we haven't able to access this model. Now we are unable to access this model now. So why? What's the reason? We just updated or we just configured this Lambda function under where? Under our private subnet, under our VPC private subnet, we configure this Lambda function, right? So that's why we are unable to access our Bedrock model from that private subnet. There is no private connectivity. So that's why we are unable to connect to this model. Now I want to provide a private connectivity. I want to provide a private connectivity from where to where? From my VPC subnet, from my VPC private subnet to Bedrock. Bedrock runtime. You can see, yeah, from my VPC private subnet 1 to this Bedrock runtime, I want to provide a private connectivity. So how can I able to provide the type of private connectivity, sir? For that, you have an option that is VPC endpoint. So that's why I'm opening VPC dashboard. In this VPC dashboard, you have an option called endpoints. By using that endpoints, you can see here option is there. By using this endpoints, you can able to provide connectivity between your private subnet elements, or you can say services, and other services. Now I'm creating the endpoint. So let's provide the endpoint name as E1 or anything. Since it's a Bedrock runtime environment, in order to remember this, I'm just providing Bedrock runtime interface endpoint. So like that, I provided the name. Now, what is the service category? It belongs to AWS services, so that's why I selected that. And then here you need to search for what service you want to provide connectivity. Currently it's a Bedrock, so that's why I'm writing Bedrock and I searched. You can see under Bedrock you have these many connectivities are there. Currently I want interface connectivity, all type of connectivities are those only. And I want to connect to Bedrock runtime, so that's why I'm selecting this specific service. Then, so where it was, yeah, it's selected. Now I want to specify to which VPC I want to provide this service connectivity. To the lab VPC, right? So where my Lambda function is there in this lab VPC. So that's why I provided that lab VPC. You also need to specify the additional configuration of subnets. To which subnets you want to provide the connectivity. Currently, I want to provide this US East 1A. Since my Lambda function is configured under that US East 1A region, to this, you can see under this US East 1A region, this Lambda function is configured to this private subnet. So that's why I'm selecting that private subnet as well. You can see that, yeah, that private subnet is this. So that's why I'm selecting this subnet. Now, yeah, that's it. So currently I'm not providing any custom policy. I'll tell you about that after accessing this Bedrock model from this private Lambda function, which is present under this private subnet. I'm just creating this endpoint right now. Just clicking on create endpoint. These are the configurations that we provided. You can see our endpoint is now pending state. So let's wait till this gets created. So whenever it gets created, from then you can able to access your Bedrock runtime from the particular VPC subnet that you specified in this service endpoint. In this interface endpoint, you specified, right? Yes, we specified. So what is the access points? So from there, we can able to connect. We specified the subnets. Now I'm just reloading this. So still it's in a pending state. After creating your endpoint also, you can able to modify the subnets. You can able to take actions. So under actions, I think after this gets available, endpoint gets available, you can able to get the actions option. Yeah, now you can able to observe that. So this is the Bedrock runtime service just now created. this endpoint service that we created. After this creation, you can have option to edit this under subnets. Now you will get the manage subnets option is also there. Okay, now let's check from our Lambda function, can I able to access or not? Can I able to access my Bedrock runtime or not? This Lambda present in which private subnet? This Lambda present in the private subnet where this endpoint is created. So now let's test this and check whether we get the response. You can see currently it is running. Why it is taking more time? So let's reload this page and let's try to retest it so that the configuration update may updated here as well, and might we get the response. I'm not changing any Lambda function, I'm just testing it.
Now let's see what happened. Yeah, I think still now also it is unable to connect. So let's see, let's verify where we did the wrong. So for that, I'm opening this configuration. Here you can able to observe. So where my Lambda function is, so it is present in this lab VPC and in this US East 1A in this private subnet one. So let's check with the endpoint as well. This endpoint also present in lab VPC. And if you observe the subnet, that subnet is also present in US East 1A. Okay. So let's see the security group. Yeah, I think the security group is blocking because the security group is the default one. It is allowing only default VPC related security group. So let's edit this. Now I'm choosing this a lab security group and I'm just modifying the security group. And yeah, so it got modified successfully. Now let's test it again. Whether now we can able to connect or not. Now you can able to observe we got the response. That is Amazon SageMaker is a fully managed service that provides a developers and scientists, data scientists with ability to build and train and deploy ML models quickly and so on. So from this what we can able to say, we have we have configured or we put our Lambda function in a private subnet, that is into this private subnet. That means our Lambda function is obviously safe, and so no one can able to access our Lambda function through public internet. And even we are getting the responses from our Bedrock, Bedrock service, Bedrock service related model. Through what? Through the endpoint that we created. What is this endpoint? It's a Bedrock runtime service interface endpoint. And we created, where we created this? In the same VPC where our Lambda function is present. In the same subnet where our Lambda function is present, we created this. We can even increase the number of subnets as well. You can see under US East 1B also, you can able to access this under private subnet, or so whatever the subnet that you want that you can specify, and you can able to modify the subnet changes. You can save that and you can see the security group. So here you can modify the traffic or allow the traffic. So at this endpoint level also, you can able to modify the policy and restrict the access to specific model only. That is, you can able to modify from particular source only, you can able to accept the request, and to particular destination only you can able to send the request as well. Like that also you can able to edit this policy. Here you can see currently the effect is allow. So actions is all actions are there. So here you can able to provide only specific action like bedrock related invoke bedrock related invoke function as well. Bedrock related invoke model. So that you can able to provide here. That is since we are invoking our model, that you can able to provide here. So if there will be any mistakes are there, then it obviously show you the mistake. And principles you can able to provide basically principles we need to provide it in a dictionary format. And so AWS is the principal. It is nothing but so whom you want to allow the access, to whom you want to allow the access. Currently I don't want to allow access to all persons. I want to allow the access to this lambda function related IAM role. So that's why I'm opening the permissions and I'm opening the attached role to this IAM, that is a attached role to this lambda function. Then from that role, I'll get the ARN of that role and provide that there. You can see this is the ARN of the role. I just copied and now I'm modifying. I'm providing that role here. So till now what we provided, this role is allowed to do this action on what resource? On not on all resources. I want to provide one particular resource. So what is that? That resource is nothing but my Bedrock related Titan text G1 premier model, right? Yes. So that model related ARN also available here. I'm just copying it. That I'm pasting here under this modify VPC. You can see under this policy, custom policy, I said I've modified that as well. Now I'm saving these changes. Here in this policy, we restricted our lambda function only the particular lambda function which are having or only this particular IAM role can able to access this particular bedrock model only and this action only performed. So only we restricted the access, right? Yeah. So now let's check whether our lambda function can able to work or not. I'm just testing it again to check the to check with the results that we are getting. You can see we are getting the results. Since this role is allowed, whatever the role that is attached to this lambda function is allowed for doing the action, that is invoking of our bedrock model. So that's why we can able to access our bedrock model. So in this way you can able to create your own policies under your endpoints as well, and you can able to manage the access to your endpoints as well. I hope you understood this video and you understood how to put your lambda function under private subnet in your VPC to secure your lambda function, and how to access your bedrock model using by creating an VPC interface endpoint. So that endpoint is also service, that is a bedrock runtime service based endpoint. And you have also seen how to create a policy or how to edit a policy in order to allow only particular sources, particular principles you want to allow to perform particular actions on only particular resources. So I hope you understood this video and you got some good knowledge related to accessing your bedrock model privately. So I hope this video is useful. If you feel this video is useful, then please like, share, subscribe and hit the bell icon to get the latest updates. Thanks for watching again. See you back in the next video with another interesting topic. Until then, bye bye guys.